Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Salary Insights for the Environmental Workforce. So I'm just going to go over some housekeeping here with everyone. All participants are muted just so we can make sure this runs smoothly. For technical issues, please use the chat function on the side button there. Any questions can be submitted to the chat/question box. And then a recording of the webinar will be sent out to all registrants within 24 hours of the webinar ending. Let's go over traditional land acknowledgement. Eco-Canada and myself would like to recognize today and every day the land we are on. Eco-Canada's commitment to reconciliation starts with acknowledging our honor and privilege to live and work within the Indigenous territory. Eco-Canada acknowledges the traditional territories and oral practices of these Indigenous nations. So who is Eco-Canada? A little bit about us. Eco-Canada is a steward of the Canadian environmental workforce across all industries. We champion the end-to-end career of an environmental professional. We not only train and certify professionals, but we also help identify and address labor market gaps. Our efforts promote and drive responsible, sustainable economic growth to ensure that environmental care and best practices are a priority. So I want to talk a little bit about Eco-Impact. Eco-Impact is our yearly event that we have here in Alberta. This year it will be on February 8th and 9th, and right now we do have a flash sale happening. So if you want to check that out, please visit our website and see if you're able to attend to that. And I'm going to hand it over to Jenny.
Thanks, Chase. Sorry, it took me a little while to find my mute button. So thank you. Welcome. I'm glad to see you here today. My name is Geni Peters. I am the Director of Research for Eco-Canada, and I am happy to walk you through our 2022-2023 salary survey guide, our compensation guide. It's available right now for sale on our Eco website, and I'll be happy to take some questions about it at the end of the presentation as well. So let's just move on to the next slide. So in general, our Eco-Canada has a research team established at least since we were founded in 1992, and our research is designed to provide up-to-date, relevant, and credible data and insights on Canada's environmental workforce. For a lot of environmental workers, we are one of the only organizations that are out there providing estimates of employment and hiring outlooks, workforce demographics, career profiles, occupational standards, and competency profiles. We also do market research and evaluation of workforce programs, and we look at benchmarking data for workforce planning or as part of HR advisory services. So let's go for next. Great. So to start off with, one of the questions that we often get is, how do we define environmental workforce? And it's a good question because there are lots of definitions out there and not all of them are the same. So our definition is quite broad. We consider people to be part of the environmental workforce as long as they are supporting the goals of environmental protection, resource management, and/or sustainability. These people can be in any industry across Canada and any occupation across Canada. We do separate these individuals into two broad groups. One is what we refer to as core environmental workers. Those are workers whose job requires them to have very specific competencies in order to be able to do their job. Impact assessment professionals, ESG professionals, individuals who are working on soil remediation and watershed restoration would fall into that category. Air quality workers, water quality workers, and environmental health and safety workers, for example. On the other side of the coin, we include people who work for organizations that are contributing environmental goods and services to our economy, but these individuals don't necessarily have to be or don't have to have environmental competencies. So we could consider truck drivers, carpenters, HR professionals, administrative assistants, business development specialists, as environmental goods and services sector workers, if they're contributing to the objectives of their environmental goods and services organization. So let's talk a little bit about the approach that we took for developing the competency data that we have developed. For the third year in a row, we have conducted a salary survey of both employers and employees in the environmental sector. We aim to reach as many different people as possible to get that salary information to be as representative as we can. The purpose of it is, of course, to gain this compensation data and benefits data so that we can provide that to our stakeholders. And it helps us, employers, of course, determine staffing and hiring compensation packages, but it can also help workers gauge acceptable salary ranges for their expertise. So how did we do this survey? The findings are based on aggregate data, which is combined from a number of different sources. As I said before, we have a national employer survey where we reach out to individual employers who have environmental workers in their staff. And we also ask workers themselves to provide information through our worker survey. We also have individuals in our EP network, our Environmental Professionals Network, and Environmental Professionals in Training, who respond to surveys specially designed for them with similar questions to our national employer and worker surveys. And then we also incorporate, for some of the analysis, salary data for those who are receiving wage funding through Eco-Canada. So these are individuals who are in a co-op or an internship of some sort, whether it's a short period of time or up to a year. That data is also incorporated into some of our findings as well. We have, in this most recent survey, in the 2022-2023 survey, we had a total of, let's see here, 2,324 responses, which represented specific salary incidents. So a salary incident is just one example of a salary reported by either a worker or an individual. In the case of the employers, we actually asked them to provide salaries for up to two occupations and up to 3 different levels of experience. So junior, intermediate, and advanced or senior level of experience. So we have a total of up to 6 incidents from our employer data per employer respondent. The employer responses represented about 68,221 workers, environmental workers across Canada. 92% of those are full-time positions. 37% are temporary, seasonal, or fixed-term positions, and the remainder, 62%, are year-round positions. So today we're going to provide some salary insights from our survey data for a number of different cross sections of the economy. And what we're going to see is that the information provided is, in this webinar, is going to be quite high level, but I'm going to describe to you what you can find in the actual compensation guide so you can have a better idea of what's available in that purchase report. So for example, we have our overall data for Canada as a whole across all occupation groups, all regions, all industries. We also break it down by region. Most of the time that's going to be by province, although we do have some areas where we've had to combine regions. So we combined Saskatchewan and Manitoba into one category, and we also combined the Atlantic provinces into a second category, and the Canadian territories are also in their own category. We have by industry, that's a two-digit NAICS industry, so a quite a high-level industry. By occupation group, we'll talk a little bit more detail about how we get that occupation group, how we define that. By environmental specialization, by type of organization, and by organization size. So we've got a wide variety of different crosscuts of this data available in our compensation guide. So to start off with, when we look at the 2022 survey data, we saw that the median or 50th percentile salary across all occupations, all industries, all regions was $55,000 annually for an environmental worker. We also represent in our compensation guide the 25th and the 75th percentiles to give a range of values. So in the case of the overall estimate, we have about $41,606 per year at the 25th percentile and about $78,000 per year at the 75th percentile. We estimate that in Canada, there are about 746,700 individuals who are environmental workers. The data that we estimate, or the responses that we got from the salary survey indicated that the average salary increase from 2021 to 2022 for an environmental worker was about 6.8%. When we take a look at the environmental salary data by territory or region, what we see is that the highest annual salaries were paid out to environmental workers in the Canadian territories and Alberta. We also see that the distribution of the workforce across the region is consistent with the overall population of the different provinces or regions. So we have the largest number of the environmental workers in Ontario, slightly lower numbers, about 19% in Quebec, 16% in British Columbia, 15% in Alberta, 6% in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. If we take a look at the average salary increases, we see that Ontario had the highest average salary increase from 2021 to 2022, which was about 7.2%. We also see that the overall salaries in Alberta were about 8% higher than the national compensation for the workforce, and the salaries in the territories were about 9% higher than the salaries across Canada. When we take a look at the salary data by industry, we see that the public administration sector by far pays the highest salary for environmental workers, with a median annual salary of $80,000. The natural resources sector, which includes agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, and oil and gas extraction, that has a median salary of about $65,000. And the manufacturing sector is coming in third at about $62,400. The environmental consulting services industry, which is a subset of the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, had a median annual salary of about $63,264, so a little bit higher than in the manufacturing sector. It was also higher than the professional, scientific, and technical services sector overall as a whole. The highest average increase was 10.7% in the wholesale and retail trade sector between 2021 and 2022, followed by healthcare and social assistance, which was about 9.4%, and then finance and insurance and real estate and rental and leasing sectors, which had an increase on average of about 8.8%. Now, before we move on from this slide, I just want to give you a flavor of the other crosscuts that we provide in our salary data. So, for example, although we have these high-level industry numbers for the salaries, we also break it down for each of these industries by experience level, by organization type, by organization size, by region, and by top occupations and specializations. So to give you an example here, if we take a look at the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, we had an overall salary of $54,000 per person as a median salary, but that ranged across experience levels from $47,270 for junior level experience, which is 0 to 2 years, up to $90,000 per year for individuals in the senior level of experience, which was 8 years or more. We also see a variety across the different types of organizations, where public sector organizations have higher salaries than private sector, and private sector has higher salaries than not-for-profit and charity. We also see that the size of the organization matters, with the largest organizations having the highest median salaries, about $65,000 in the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, and the lowest salaries being with the small and micro firms. By region, we see that the Canadian territories had the highest salaries in the professional, scientific, and technical services industry, close to $79,000 per year as a median salary, whereas the lowest salaries were observed in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Ontario, and Atlantic Canada, all at about $50,000 median salary per year. So that just gives you a flavor of the different types of crosscuts that are available in the salary guide, should you be interested in getting access to that. We also surveyed individuals and employers about the benefits that were being offered by the organizations that they worked for or that they ran. We found that there are quite a few differences across industries, but by far the public administration sector and the utility sectors offered the most extensive benefit packages. I think that makes sense. I don't think that's a surprise to many people. What we did find, though, on the flexible hours side of things was that the professional, scientific, and technical services industry were more likely, or organizations in that industry were more likely to offer flexible hours to their workers than in other industries. A couple of other benefit information provided. We see that training and professional development is offered across all industries, but the highest number or the highest proportion of a sector that offers the professional development, training and professional development, is the utilities sector, at about 59% of those organizations and utilities offering that. On the other side of things, childcare subsidies are not very commonly offered. Less than 6% across all industries of organizations across all industries offer childcare subsidies. So next we'll move on to occupational groups and give you a little bit of a flavor of how we classify those occupational groups and then what the data looks like for those groups. So to give you a bit of a breakdown, we provide 5 broad categories of occupations. The first is operators and laborers, which include people that would be titled attendants or drivers, laborers, operators, packers, or workers. These are individuals who are either entry level or individuals who have very little autonomy in the role that they have. And we had 187 salary incidents that we can refer to when we look at that occupational group. The next group are business, finance, and administration workers. Those are individuals who, again, have relatively limited autonomy in the work that they do, but they're working in the business, finance, and administration sector rather than in a more manual or technical sector. So those are assistants, associates, clerks, coordinators, and representatives. We third have business, finance, and administration officers. Those are individuals who don't necessarily have any managerial responsibilities, but they have greater autonomy in the work that they do than the business workers. So these might be administrators, advisors, analysts, inspectors, officers, or specialists. The last two groups include managers and supervisors, individuals that we would normally include in those groups, and then technical specialists, which is a very broad group, which includes architects, engineers, planners, scientists, technologists. It also includes legal professionals, educational professionals, IT professionals, individuals who have a very specialized knowledge that they are imparting in the work that they're doing. By far, we had the largest number of incidents in the technical specialists occupation group, followed shortly thereafter by managers and supervisors. If we take a look at the salary insights by occupational group, we see that managers and supervisors saw the highest average salary increase of about 7.2% between 2021 and 2022. Business, finance, and administration officers was shortly behind that with only 7.1% average increase, followed by technologists and technicians at about 6.6% increase. Across the various different occupational groups, we saw the highest salaries in the managers and supervisors occupational group at $70,000 for a median salary. Engineers followed, $63,360, and then architects and planners were third at $56,540. And once again, like with the industry groups, we also look at each occupational group in various different crosscuts. So we also include crosscuts again by experience level, by organization type, organization size, by region, by specialization, and by industry as well. The next category that we have environmental salaries by is what we refer to as our environmental specialization. Now, Eco-Canada has done a fair bit of research into the different types of work involved in the environmental sector, and we've classified the work into three broad categories, with one sort of intersectional category of environmental management in the middle. So we break it down into environmental protection, resource management, and environmental sustainability. And within each of those broad groups, we have specializations such as air quality, energy, which includes renewable energy and energy efficiency, sustainability, which would represent sustainability professionals. We have environmental health and safety, waste management, fisheries and wildlife, and so forth. So if we take a look at all of those different specializations, based on the data that we collected, we saw that the water quality protection specialists, the water quality specialists, had the highest median salary in our sample, $68,000 per year. Policy and legislation specialists followed shortly behind, as did environmental managers or environmental management. Taking a look at the breakdown by size of organization, it may not be surprising that we see that as the size of the organization increases, the salary also tends to increase. So with the micro organizations, which is 1 to 4 individuals, we saw a median annual salary of $48,000 for environmental workers. But they had about a 6.2% increase in salaries between 2021 and 2022. When we move up to the largest organizations, so that would be in organizations with 500 or more employees, we see the median annual salary rises up to $71,350 for an environmental worker. They also had a fairly high increase in salaries, about 6.7% increase between 2021 and 2022. Taking a look at benefits by size of organization, we see that large and medium organizations provide more employment benefits than micro-organizations. Again, probably not surprising given the larger cash flow and resources that a large or medium organization would have. On the other hand, micro-organizations make up for it by being more likely to offer flexible work hours. So there's a trade-off in terms of the flexibility of work compared to the more traditional benefits. When we look at the salaries by organization type, we're comparing the public sector to the private sector to the not-for-profit and charity sector. As mentioned earlier, we expect to see that the public sector has the highest median annual salary. The not-for-profit sector has the lowest median annual salary at $48,000 per year. The average increase was also higher in the public sector than in the not-for-profit sector. 5% increase across the board in the public sector, but it was highest in the private sector at 6.9% increase. The not-for-profit sector only saw a 3.8% increase in salaries. In terms of benefits, the basic benefits, such as dental care and disability, are similar amongst public sector and not-for-profit organizations, where the private sector tends to offer slightly fewer benefits. Only 2% of not-for-profit organizations offer a child care subsidy, on the other hand, as opposed to 5% of private and public sector organizations. Telecommuting is also offered by in variation, with 36% of organizations offering this benefit in the not-for-profit and charitable organization sector, whereas only 22% of public sector organizations and 19% of private sector organizations offer telecommuting. So here's the wrap up to this, is that we want you to be able to use this data to your advantage in terms of increasing your organization's competitive edge when it comes to hiring, helping to build your employee engagement strategy, keeping workers on staff by making sure that they're paid based on benchmark data, and to secure your top talent wherever possible. If you're interested in a copy of this compensation guide, you can purchase it on our website for $199 plus tax, and it can be purchased at https://eco.ca/environmental-employers/compensation-guide/. And you can link to that directly from our website as well. And if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always contact us at research@eco.ca or at info@eco.ca. Either way, you can reach us and find out more information about the compensation guide. If you have specific questions you want to ask, please reach out. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. And we can also walk you through the process of purchasing that compensation guide as well.
Yeah, we do have one question here, Jenny. They are asking, what is the 25th to 70th percentile man?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Chase?
What is the 25th to 75th percentile man?
Man.
Could you guys clarify that question, please?
What does it mean?
Yes.
What does it mean? Okay. So when we're looking at percentiles, we rank the salaries from the smallest salary to the largest salary. And then we look at the salary that's 25% up from the lowest salary. That's our 25th percentile. The 50th percentile is right in the middle of that range. And then the 75th percentile is about halfway between the median salary and the highest salary. So it kind of gives us a bit of an understanding of what the salary ranges look like without having skewed data by offering just the maximum and minimum salaries, because sometimes maximum and minimum salaries are very extreme, and we want to be more representative than that. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Jenny. Is there any more questions? If someone buys a guide, can they share it with their employees?
Well, I suppose we would probably say that it's meant for the individual who purchased it. One concern that sometimes is expressed by individuals or organizations that want to contribute to our salary guide is that they don't want, they would prefer to have that salary data internal to the organization rather than have the workers have it. But strictly speaking, there's nothing that we can do to prevent you from sharing it. We just prefer that you purchase it for each individual that is going to be using it.
Thanks for that, Jenny. Another question here. Does your salary data include all compensation, such as incentives, bonuses, and allowances?
That's a good question. And the answer is we ask about their base salary only. So we don't have information about additional types of compensation.
I think that's all we have for questions. Alrighty, I think that's it, Jenny. Thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions, please reach out, as Jenny mentioned, and there will be a copy of this webinar sent out to everyone within 24 hours. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
you. Jenny.